Welcome to week 10 of Bible Studies for Life. I don't know about where you are, but let me tell you, it's cold where I am. We had snow. I live in Houston, north side of Houston. We had snow. It was crazy. But anyway, here we are. We're ready to go for week 10 of Bible Studies for Life. I'm glad you're watching. And before we get into the scripture, be sure, if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Like it if you do that. If you've got a comment, a question, tell us how much it snowed at your house. Some of you live where it really actually snows. I know. How much did you get? And then if you want to share the video, man, that would be awesome if you'd do that. All right, we're going to look at Psalm chapter 40 today. We're talking about worship. We're talking about when you go to worship, you think about Psalms often, and it's a great place to go. So let's look at Psalm 40. I waited patiently for the Lord, and he turned to me and heard my cry for help. He brought me up from a desolate pit out of the muddy clay and set my feet on a rock, making my steps secure. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear, and they will trust in the Lord. What a great testimony. This psalm begins with the testimony of God's work, of God's salvation, of his deliverance. He says, I waited patiently, and he turned to me, and he heard my cry for help. This testimony, I called out to the Lord, and he answered, and he brought me up from the pit, the desolate pit, and he out of the muddy clay, and he set my feet on the rock. Now, how many of you got a testimony like that? How many of you can say, there's been a time when I was in a pit. There's been a time when I was crying out to the Lord for help. I needed him. He was my only hope. I needed him to get me out of where I was, what was happening in my life, what was going on around me, maybe the depression that I was in, or the loneliness that I felt, or the real crisis that was attacking me, attacking my family. And I prayed, and God answered my prayer. He heard my prayer. What a great time to share testimonies of God's answer. Now, just as a teacher, if you're teaching a class, you have to be real careful with the testimony time, because some people don't know how to do a 2-minute testimony. You know what I mean? Some people are going to do the 2-minute times 10 testimony. So you want to keep it short, but it is a great time for people to share their stories, to acknowledge how God has moved. And it is appropriate in worship to honor God for the things that he has done in our life. I love this. It wasn't just as he got me out of the trouble, but look, he put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise, that we should be singing, we should be acknowledging to the Lord, praising him because of what he's done. And then many will see and fear, and they will trust in the Lord. This is this outward, right? So we have this kind of inward, and then we have the outward, right? That what comes into me, what God does in me, but then how that, I can't keep that. It's got to come out. We'll see that as we go on. How happy is anyone who has put his trust in the Lord and has not turned to the proud or to those who run after lies. Lord, my God, you have done many things. Your wondrous works and your plans for us, none can compare with you. If I were to report and speak of them, they are more than can be told. What a great statement. True, right? That if you put your trust in the Lord, he makes you happy. He makes you satisfied. Now, I want you to notice something. Okay, look, here, this is testimonial time, right? He's speaking to people here. I waited patiently for the Lord. He heard my cry. Then here, put your trust in the Lord. He's talking to people, right? Don't turn to the proud. Don't turn to the people that run after lies. And then here we have a change in verse 5. Lord my God, you notice that? He goes from talking about the Lord to talking to the Lord. This is a really great thing to think about when you're singing hymns, when you're singing songs in worship. Some songs are to God, some songs are about God. And some are like this one, where they talk about and they talk to the Lord. And so you might think about, as you're singing a song, I mean, we think of some great songs. We don't often figure that out because they use, how great thou art is not about God, it's to God, because thou is you. How great you are, Lord. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is your faithfulness. So those classic hymns, but maybe sometimes we think of more modern songs as being more toward God. But the truth is that modern hymns and modern songs also go between those two. Some are about God, some are to God, and both are appropriate forms of praise. Both are appropriate forms of worship. Sorry about that little break. Had somebody call, want me to come preach, so I can't turn that down, right? All right, here we go. We're going back to this. Here he's talking to God. Lord, my God, you have done many things. Your wondrous works, your plans for us. None can compare with you. This exaltation of the Lord. He is above everything, everyone, every God. The Lord is greater than all. And then this reminds me of the end of the Gospel of John. If I were to report them and speak of them, they are more than can be told. It's kind of what the Gospel writer John wrote about the works of Jesus. You could fill all the libraries in the world with the things that he did. You do not delight in sacrifice and offering. You open my ears to listen. You do not ask for a whole burnt offering or a sin offering. Then I said, see, I have come in the scroll that is written about me. I delight to do your will, my God, and your instruction is deep within me. Okay, you might read this verse 6 and go, oh, no, wait a minute. I thought the Lord did call us to make offerings. But it's important to understand the context of all that he's saying here. Okay, you do not delight in sacrifice and offering. You open my ears to listen. You don't ask for a whole burnt offering or a sin offering. He said, see, I've come in the scroll that is written about me. I delight to do your will. He's not saying that you shouldn't give offerings. He's not saying you shouldn't make sacrifices. He's saying that there is and this, you see this in the prophets often. You cannot settle for just the ritualistic performance. The Lord wants you to listen. You open my ears to listen, right? He wants us to do his will, for his instruction to be deep within us, his instruction to fill our souls. So we could do the sacrifice and the offering, the whole burnt offering, the sin offering. We do that, but we don't listen. We do that and we don't obey. It was just a show. It's all it was. It was a performance art. And it's meaningless. And look, the same is still true today. Sometimes we can fall into the trap of thinking that we did what God wanted because we showed up and we went to church and we went to Bible study, and so God ought to be happy. Now I can go do whatever I want the rest of my week. But that is not it. The Lord says, show up, yes, but listen when you get there. And when you leave, obey. Do and continue to listen when you leave. It can't just be about the performance. It can't just be about coming and kind of going through the ritual for us. And we have to, sometimes what people say is, well, I stopped going to church because it just became a habit for me and I don't want it to be a habit. Well, that's the wrong solution. The correct solution is not stop going because I don't want it to be a habit. The correct solution is don't let it become a habit. And if it does, change. Make it real. Really commit. Don't just stop and say, well, I'm not going to do it anymore because it was a habit. No, go back to your first love. Go back to why you do this and do it for the right reason, right? Okay. He says, I proclaim righteousness in the great assembly. See, I do not keep my mouth closed, as you know, Lord. I did not hide your righteousness in my heart. I spoke about your faithfulness and salvation. I did not conceal your constant love and truth from the great assembly. Lord, you do not withhold your compassion from me. Your constant love and truth will always guard me. Love this section here because here he says, basically, I cannot keep from telling people. I've got to tell people. I proclaim righteousness in the great assembly, right? I do not keep my mouth closed. I love this. I do not hide your righteousness in my heart. What a great way. I mean, the poetry there is beautiful, right? I don't hide God's righteousness in my heart. I let it out. I let people know I spoke about your faithfulness. I did not conceal your love and truth from the great assembly. You ever think about that? That when we don't tell others, even within the church, when we don't tell others of what God has done, we are concealing his love from other people. We're concealing his truth from other people. We are hiding his glory, his righteousness, his beauty. We're hiding it in our hearts instead of revealing it, opening it. And so you see, it is sinful to not share with others what God has done. We are to speak to others about what God has done. Lord, you do not withhold your compassion and love from me. Your constant love will always guard me. The Lord watches over us. This final statement of his confidence in the Lord. how important it is that we tell others what God has done. We cannot hide it. And if we're not telling others, then we're hiding it. We're concealing it. We're keeping it a secret. We don't want them to know. We're going to hide it away in our heart. We're not going to show them. You can't do that. We've got to speak about it. We've got to proclaim his righteousness in the assembly. We've got to let people know how great God is. Be sure you do that when you get together. Encourage, challenge your class to share God's love, even with one another, but certainly with a lost world. Hey, thanks for watching. Appreciate you doing that. Thanks for teaching. God bless you for that. Be sure and subscribe, like, comment, share it with somebody else. We'll see you next time.